Well, hey, and welcome back to the Single, Dating, Engaged, Married podcast, everybody. I am Elizabeth here, and we are back with Pastor Ben Stuart, Donna Stuart,
hello,
and also Jacob Harkey joining us for the first time on the podcast today.
Yeah, look at that guy.
Donna, it's your first time
It
officially
is
on
my
the
first time.
podcast
I'm
today.
excited to be here. Thank
You have
for
been
the
mentioned, you have
invitation.
been referenced, but this is your first time on the
This is what I
podcast.
look like, everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Donna here. I am so excited for today. We are kicking off a couple of episodes focused specifically on marriage. That end of the phrase, single, dating, engaged, married.
There it is.
Yes.
Which I love that we're taking some episodes to focus on that because understandably, we get a lot of questions about singleness and dating and engagement. And then sometimes that takes up a large part of the conversation. And then you think maybe like you're married, that's the end of this movement. But that's not really what marriage is. It's not like we did it and there's no problems.
Yeah.
So there's things to talk about. But what I think I love in particular about the way you two talk about marriage is just how life-giving and joyful and fun you present marriage to be.
Oh, that's cool.
I know as a single person in the church, I have heard a lot of people talk about how hard marriage is. And I don't want to discount that. I believe marriage can be hard. But sometimes I hear that enough and I'm like, well, then why?
The old ball and chain.
Why are a lot of people moving through these phases?
Right.
And so I know we'll talk about the hard and we'll get to some questions, but I just love y'all's story and the way you talk about how beautiful marriage can be and how joyful it is too. So,
Oh, thanks.
yeah, that's where we're going today. We get to hear more about Ben and Donna, the early years.
We did. And I'll say this too. Thank you, by the way. It's interesting. I just had this happen. I was at Clemson University and, a bunch of people came up that had read the book and I had a few of them, more than one, say like, well, I stopped at the marriage part because we're not there yet. And I'm like, well, I don't know that you gotta,
going.
When I was in college, it was actually listening to a sermon on marriage that I was like, this isn't really about me, but what are you going to do? And I put it in and I realized like, oh, I had real misconceptions of what it is. And it wasn't a talk like shaming you per se. It was actually presenting a beautiful picture of what it could be. And that really helped frame for me what I was aiming at. Yeah. And so I don't think today's just like, oh, so if you're not married, turn off. You go, no, this is, I don't think all of our lives are meant to terminate at marriage. They're not. But if that's a desire you have, and maybe you're marching that way, it's good to have the end in mind. And so if this can help, let's go.
Yes.
Man. Well, we're excited. For those who don't know, we would love to go all the way back to the early years,
Okay.
the very beginning,
Back to
Ben
the
and
start.
Donna.
The
Here we
young
go.
folks.
How did you guys meet?
Can I say this to start too? We've only done this once.
We have.
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
with Sadie,
Sadie.
like a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago.
Yep.
We tried doing this before, and it did
was-
not go great.
Wait, why?
Those, I don't know.
We know how to dance together in life, but like the old statement, like the hardest thing to do when someone turns on a camera is walk across the room. Like you suddenly get real like self-conscious in your note, like where do I put my hands? And we were just like, oh, we don't know how to do this.
Actually, yes.
I don't know how to stop talking. She's not sure what to say. And we're just like, but I think we've, you give it a few decades.
We at least had 2 weeks ago. We did well. Maybe we'll do well today.
Mailed it. All right. So sorry, you asked a question.
Yeah. Taking us back to the beginning. First should be an easy one. How'd y'all meet?
We met on stage, actually.
Like physically, literally, like
Physically on stage.
On stage. We met on stage. I was in the Woodlands, Texas, working at a church, and I had a band called Hope Door at the time. And we were at the Woodlands UMC, and the guy who was typically leading at that time, his name's Matt Chandler. He and Lauren had their first baby, and then they got another baby called The Village. And so they had to go take care of those. And so there was this opening, and so they invited a guy named Ben Stuart to come and fill in. And
Took a step way down. I was leading a youth group of like a few dozen. The desperation call.
Gotta find someone.
So Ben enters the room, and I'm on stage, tuning my guitar, getting ready, and I see this guy walk across the back of the room, and I just kind of tuned and kind of followed, just like this. And my guitar player was like, what was that? I was like, shut up, that was nothing. And like, it was like, but there was an attractive man walking through the back of the room, and I was like, who's that? And then he stepped on stage and told the, group, open your Bibles to Genesis 1:1. And I was like, I roll. Like, I've heard this. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see how he's going to do. And then he taught, and I was like, well, look at that. I have never in my life, of all the times that I've read Genesis, received any of that out of the text. And I was like, whoa, okay, not only is this guy attractive, he can teach. Maybe he could see this here and be interested, because I was instantly
So you're kind of already going on like a journey. But
I already did. I went on a journey.
Actually, like, hey, I'm Donna Barker. Hey, I'm Ben Stewart. Or is it like, has that happened yet?
I don't know if we did that.
Yeah.
I think it was just kind of like I was leading, and it was like, hey, he's the guy. And then he spoke, and I was like, oh no, I'm doomed. I'm ruined.
Yeah, it was interesting for me. I had gotten to a place where I was just very content being single. I just felt like that had landed in me. Of what became the chapter on singleness was started as like a personal manifesto alone in my apartment of like, there's a purpose for singleness. And I want to live into that. I don't want to miss it. And I had been so angsty about being a youth pastor and like, what's the next thing? God, am I trapped in the suburbs and blah? And I finally had just gotten to this place where I'm like, I trust the Lord with my life. I'm getting to mentor young people. And I just was really content in my life, wanted to go study the Bible more. And I actually was kind of at the time proud of how not interested I was in the dating scene. Like, word had gotten out in our church, stop trying to set him up. Like my middle school guy, they were setting him up constantly, and he was going. Every cousin, niece, whatever. Me, I was like, no. Like, in fact, I didn't even have to keep saying it. People were like, don't do that. Don't bring your niece around him. He does not want to hear it. And so I showed up, at this thing with my little mentees around me, my high school guys, and I was there to teach, and only that. And I did notice notice she was attractive, but it bothered me because it felt like an arrow got under the armor. And so I wasn't like, well, let me see where this goes. I was like, I need to get this out of my world because I'm trying to do some other stuff.
Which was clear. He kind of acted that way. He was like,
I'm here on a mission.
Yeah,
I'm here on I'm on more. But the funny thing, I'll say this, Elizabeth, because this is a good like transition thing. We discovered later, we had actually sat at the same dinner before. Like same table. It was a long table. It was a lot of people. But I was there with Greg Mott, my mentor, and she was there with one of her mentors. But we were at the opposite ends of the table, never talked. This was years before.
At a dinner together.
And then someone invited me to one of her band's concerts, and I showed up late and missed her whole set. So I passed her in the room, and we did not meet. And then my buddy was like, hey, I got you the album of this band. And I threw it in the back seat of my car and never actually unwrapped it or listened to it. Great. And so we were laughing about that. We're like, you know what? I don't think we would have been friends back then. Like, I don't think we would have gotten along. Like, and that's not like a cute way to say that. You're like, there was some real sharpening God had to do. And I don't want to say that thing. You're like, well, you'll meet the person when you're ready. Because sometimes you're ready and God's like, yeah, but the moment's not ready. But I look at us and I go, it was funny that I had a friend, this is where I landed. I had a friend told me a while back when I was a youth pastor, she said, I'm praying that you would be like Adam, going about the work God has put in your hands. And when God was ready, God knocked Adam out and God opened his eyes and he saw Eve. And I remember she told me that and I was like, okay.
Thanks.
Like, I was like, I don't know what to make of that. But as I looked back on it, I'm like, that's kind of what was happening. I was about the work God put in my hands. I wanted to do great. I wanted to leverage all the opportunities single affords. And then it's like he opened my eyes to see Donna. And suddenly I was interested in this person and kind of
mad about
couldn't
it.
help it.
Like.
Yeah, couldn't help it at some level. Yeah.
Interesting.
Becca and I had my wife, Becca, people don't know my wife. So
amazing.
we had a similar situation where we were in photos, like Facebook tagged photos with each other and weren't like friends at the time.
Yeah.
And kind of had that connection via social media through some friends. And it was a timing thing where just the right time came and it kind of worked out.
Did y'all meet at church or like in friendship groups at church?
Similar thing where she was dating someone, I was dating someone, there's overlap there, youth group, she kind of was going to this youth group that I was part of. And
Yeah.
so it's just funny. It's like sometimes the person that you've known for a very long time, but actually never got to know is the person for you. So just kind of interesting.
It's interesting to watch how that happens too, because, you know, there was a time where people would just tell me like that you just don't meet people at church anymore. You don't meet people in social circles. Like life's not like that. I think you're seeing in the statistics that bear out with younger people now saying like, I actually want to meet people in these physical spaces, you know, like the meetups we do at church, stuff like that. And for y'all, you met in a church context. For us, we weren't at the same church, but we were at sister churches. And they called me because they knew like, hey, he could come and teach at this event. They knew her. And so you go in this matrix of like believing friendships, being mentored in that matrix. That's where we met each other. It doesn't always work out that way, but I think that's one of the reasons why you should nest yourself in a vibrant Christian community because it puts you around some delightful people.
Absolutely. So what made the shift happen for you then? If Donna, you were ready to go, you were kind of fighting it. What kind of shifted in you that took you down that path?
Well, I
still don't know.
How did I get here? I had to acknowledge I was interested in her at some level, just internally, not externally to anyone. But we would lead this youth thing, and then she's like, hey, the band's all going out to dinner. Do you want to go? I was like, yes. But it was kind of like, we're not on a date. This is like a soft situation where our friendship group is hanging out.
Yeah.
But we had done that enough where, you know, you do that thing where like we're all hanging out, but we're talking, and then they all start talking and we're having a separate thing. And then you just watch as the night goes on, we are having a conversation. And at some point you got to acknowledge like, I am trying to get into this conversation. I'm not trying to get out of this conversation. I'm trying to get into this conversation. And so I would speak at this thing once a month. So it's basically once a month, we're in each other's orbit.
Fresh vibe.
And fresh vibe. Fresh vibe.
Incredible.
That's where the magic happened.
That's where
so that's kind of how it went, you know? And then ultimately there was one moment where we all decided to go to a movie together. And that was the moment for me where I shifted to like, okay, let's all go. And I asked her if she wanted to go with a group of us to this movie. It's just a group of people doing it. But then I made sure the only available seat was next to me. And that's when I started this initiation of, okay, I am creating environments where we're around each other. And then beyond that, I asked her on a date. But, when I talk about interest with people, it's that cause. Are you chasing the same cause? Do you have a God-shaped character? And then do you have chemistry? Cause, I'm like, we're both ministering. And I'm around these people that know her. And like, she's not just ministering on stage. Like, she's mentoring young girls. She's leading these Bible studies. So I'm like, this girl's life is running the same direction as mine, you know? And she's being shaped by God, by this godly community I'm watching her interact with. So I kind of got to watch her without the pressure of like just the two of us at a meal. I'm watching her move in this room.
Yeah.
And then the chemistry was just, as we were talking, I'm like, I find her, I don't know what she's going to say next. I can't guess what she's going to say. And like, she actually makes me laugh. And not a lot of people do that. And so that's where I just had to go like, okay, I didn't have the like 3 C's yet, but they were all clicking in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have the boxes labeled, but they were getting checked, you know? Does that make sense?
Well, then take us to where your head is at. You're seeing this guy once a month. You know you're interested. And it sounds like even up until that like group movie thing, you haven't used the word date yet. It's not a date.
I was shocked when he was like, hey,
I'm slow rolling
a
this
group of us are going to a movie. And I was like, oh, he's about to say something else. I was 20, how old was I? I was like 23, 24 at the time. And I had just been around a lot of guys because I had a band and I was doing all the, just had been around a lot of wonderful men that were great, but couldn't quite lead me. And I was like, but then this guy comes around and I'm like, I think he might be able to lead this. He might be able to lead me, which would be crazy because I lead everything. I was running the band and I was doing all the things. And so it was the moment where one of his buddies, actually Bowser, was like, hey, whatever you do, don't push. Just be yourself and don't try to do it. Like, don't try to make it happen, because if you do that, then he's going to go away because he does not want to date anybody. Let it just happen. And so I took his advice. I believed that Bowser cared a lot about Ben and cared a lot about his whoever. And he liked me. I mean, Bowser was part of the reason why I got the job at the church I was at. And so I was like, okay, I trust this guy. So it was cool to be in community with people that knew us both.
Yeah.
And I just was like, okay, I'll listen to him and I'll just kind of chill and hang and be available and be kind and be game for whatever we want to do. But the moment where he was like, hey, a group of us are going to go see Two Towers.
That's a long movie, too.
I know. And it starts at midnight.
Quality
It was
time.
the night it began.
Oh, okay.
Kids.
Yeah.
These are important details.
I know.
Kids.
They are important details. Actually, they are important details. So we're going to go see Two Towers. And I was like, I am so excited about this. And I asked my friend, who was my best friend at the time. She was married and pregnant. And I was like, they're going to a movie. Please go with me. She's like, not on your life.
Absolutely not.
She was like, I am not going to a 3-hour movie that starts at midnight with a bunch of people. And, in like movie theaters, whenever you're waiting around, it's just loud and everybody's like just being crazy. And anyway, I was like, you're the worst best friend ever to not go with me. And she's like, you're going to be fine. Just go. Anyway, so I go. And it's farther. It was like closer into Houston than where we were. And so it was like 20 minutes in, and I get there, and sure enough, there's only one seat, and it's right by him. And I was like, that's a date. That he asked me on a date.
Counting it.
Or it's a date. And so I was like, okay, be cool. So that was kind of where I was. And I wanted to be available, but I didn't want to push.
Yeah. Sounds like a good headspace to be in.
Yeah.
So how far after the movie were you like, okay,
we argued in the movie.
Yeah.
We argued like just
talked
before.
during the movie?
Well, we argued a little before.
How dare you?
Just a shade.
First of all.
I mean, that was probably our first like disagreement. Like, so we were all standing around waiting for the movie to happen.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know how it came up, but he was like, well, I'll just call you. I was like, well, you would need my number. And he goes, well, I have your number. I was like, I'm pretty sure you don't have my number. And he's like, no, I do. And I was like, well, how would you have received said number? And he goes, you gave it to me. I was like, oh no, I'm pretty sure I did not give you my number. And he's like, you did. But he never confirmed that as a band, there is a card. And the card is the band card.
No.
And it is my number on the card. And so he was like, I have your number because you gave it to me. And that's not how it went. I gave him the band card.
You
First
came
fight.
up. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That's
That's
how
great.
it
I'm sorry. Keep
No,
going.
that's
Yeah,
exactly how it went.
all right. Yeah. Okay.
And so he was like, well, I would just have to, I'll just call you because I have your number. I was like, you don't have my number. Anyway, so that was it. And we just kind of stopped for a moment. Anyway, we get into the movie. The movie's going. There's a scene that every female knows that Legolas the elf has blue eyes. Everyone knows that. But there was a scene with Aragorn and Legolas in the cave, and his eyes are brown. Orlando Bloom has brown eyes, but Legolas has blue eyes. And I was like, oh, look, they left his contacts out or whatever. And he goes, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it was like a split second. She's like, he didn't have a contact set. I was like, he wasn't on the screen for a full second. Like, you don't, like, what are you talking about?
And I was like, he goes, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I know what color the elves' eyes are. Anyway, the next scene when he comes bounding over the hill and the eyes are blue, and he's just like, whatever, Anyway, so then the movie ends. The Gollum part was hard for me because I was like crying, and it was a hard part. Anyway, so I'm like trying not to let him see that I'm crying over Gollum's scene. And anyway, the movie ends, and I'm driving back 20 minutes, and my phone rings, and I think it's either Bowser or Chris Collins or one of the other guys that are there who's checking up on me because it's like 4 a.m. And I pick up my phone without looking at it, and I answer, and he goes, well, the elf may have blue eyes, but I definitely have your number. And I was like, hi.
Yeah, that was our first phone call.
And that was our first phone call.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I will say this, just backing it up. All my college dating relationships were a mess because I just didn't know what I was doing. Like I didn't know how to, talk to a girl at all or process my own emotional, my own feelings. They were all foreign to me and confusing. I think being a youth pastor helped me. Not that you have to be a youth pastor, but being in charge of something and being responsible for it was helpful for me. So before dating started, I just think there was like, you have to make a decision here. To not make a choice is to make a choice. You got to own some responsibility for how you treat people. Like I was learning all that because I was actively involved in. So when we first started hanging out, I was like, I've initiated nothing. We just happen to be in the same context. I'm interested in this person, but I'm not sure. So I am purposefully initiating nothing because I'm not going to play games here.
Yeah, totally.
But I remember after that movie thing, I was like, I invited her to this, but it was pretty low pressure. Like I didn't call it a date. Everybody's there.
Right.
But when we got in the car, I was like, if I call this number, I'm initiating a conversation that just the two of us are in. And I'm like, am I ready to do that at an emotional level? Like this isn't marriage, but am I ready to, like I am making a choice.
At like 3, 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning.
Well, I was being a responsible,
He was being sweet
I was
to me,
checking
'cause
up
he was checking
on a
up.
single
Being sweet.
female friend traveling at night through the dark streets of Houston.
Great cover.
So anyway, but so I called her and you go, okay, now for me, that was a psychological shift of like, I am acknowledging I'm interested in this girl.
Yeah.
So from there, I was like, all right, then I am going to, in my own head now, own that that's what's happening. So so the next time I saw her, my brother had this event and he invited me to go. And so I just told her like, hey, my brother invited me to this New Year's party. I need a date. I'd love for you to come with me. You know, so it was like,
he said the word date.
I wanted to use the
It
word
was
so
so
she knew
helpful.
what was happening. This wasn't like the
so
movie.
helpful.
This was another thing.
I knew it
And I
was a
wanted
date.
her to feel that, but I wanted her to know like, but there'll be other people there. And like, I wanted to give her clarity of what I was, because I know clarity is kindness. I want to show you some clarity of what I'm inviting you to, give you the freedom to say no if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So then she said yes to that. And then after that, I just asked her on a date with just the two of us. Well, I thought it was going to be just two of us. It turned out not being just two of us.
That's true.
But
That
I was trying to create these environments that were comfortable for us to evaluate, that didn't feel like too much pressure, but didn't have a lot of confusion either. So I knew clarity is kindness. So let me be clear about what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. And I think that was a good thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It worked out.
You referenced that. It did. Yeah, it did. Here we are.
Spoiler.
You kind of referenced that next date, which I believe we've heard that story before. But what were some of the formative moments as you went on more dates and more dates? What were some of the formative moments in those early days of moving you along the process?
Yeah.
Whether it was dates or things you're experiencing together or things that you're experiencing individually, what were kind of those initial moments for both of you of, all right, this is going somewhere. This is not like anything else.
I'll start there. I like, she did this when I first picked her up for like a date. She said, meet me at the church. And I showed up and it was like a youth event, like a talent show or something. I was like, oh, like I thought I was just picking her up. And it's like, no, we're going to be here for a minute because every human being that you know is so. And after a while, I'm like, she did this on purpose.
I did
like,
that on purpose.
I'm meeting her people. This is her family. You know, these are the people that care about her. And some guy is kind of sniffing around, so they want to meet him. And I was like, you know what? That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool that they care about her like that. It makes me want to, not that I wasn't going to treat her bad, but it makes me go like, they're communicating in a kind way. We care a lot about this person. She has value. And I'm like, I want to communicate that back to all of y'all. And I really liked that. And that probably opened up for me when you're dating somebody, you're seeing them, but you're also seeing yourself. And I was seeing in myself, one of the reasons I didn't date a lot was probably some fear shoved in there from my parents' divorce, from just the vulnerability of someone could hurt me. And so I realized I don't fully trust my sifting criteria of how to evaluate somebody. I just had to be honest about that. But watching her bring the community around in that way made me want to do the same in a selective way. I didn't want everybody because I was leading at a church and there's all kinds of people that would have all kinds of thoughts that wouldn't be helpful. But I wanted to find some counsel that I trusted. So I think one of the best things I did was said, people that really knew me and loved me, can we go on a double date with y'all? Or one of our first dates, I invited her to go rappelling. I thought, let's do something fun. Let's drive to Austin and we'll go rappelling down this cliff. But I called a guy that was basically the man I wanted to be like. He was just like a Christian mentor that like all us guys did his camp. You know, Chandler was there, Shane, and like we're all like, we want to be him when we grow up.
Yeah.
And so I was like, can you take us rappelling? Because you know how to do it and you got all the gear and I know you. And then like underneath, tell me what you like. I'm going to call you for some honest feedback about like, am I being weird? Is she weird? Like, I don't trust my own evaluation criteria. But it's that whole, proverb, with many counselors, victory is sure. I felt comfortable to evaluate this relationship because I wasn't just relying on my own ability to assess, which I felt was maybe a bit fragile.
Yeah.
And so it helped me to see my friends go, she's great. Y'all are great together. Y'all really enjoyed each other. And that helped me go like, we did. I agree. I concur. Like I needed that friendship to ping off of. And so all of our dates weren't with other people, but there was a lot of people around us. And if you look historically at human relationships, it was always that way.
Yeah.
You'd be in the same town. You'd be on the same block. The people knew you. You were known commodities to each other. And I don't think pairing off one-on-one is wrong, but modern dating's complicated because so much of the getting to know each other is in isolation. So you go, it's okay to pair off and go away somewhere in a dinner, but how do you get around people that can watch you and say, like Song of Solomon, rightly do the maidens love you. And so having some other friends evaluate, not just Donna, but evaluate us, gave me confidence to keep the dating process going.
Come to find out, that guy knew me. He was part of the youth group, like back when I was in high school. So he had watched, he'd known me way longer than Ben knew me. And so it was really fun to kind of collide in where he was in his life at that moment. I didn't know that he was everybody's hero, but he was one of my heroes when I was in high school. It's pretty cool.
But it's neat to think, some people, their parents do that. Some people, that's how that happens. We came from divorced homes. That wasn't going to be the biological family wasn't going to be all that for us. That's not a knock on we have wonderful people, but where we lived, it was our church community surrounding us that really helped us navigate those fragile first days of interest and love,
Yeah. So you're dating, you're having fun together, you're getting, to your point, just that affirmation from people you trust all around. At what point in that process did each of you kind of realize this is getting more serious or this is trending like we're not just having fun, like I'm getting invested here?
Yeah.
Well, I was feeling that. I was like, okay, my heart is going somewhere clearly. And it's more than just like, this is a fun thing to do, fun dates to have. And I was like, okay, I need to give him a big out. So now's the time for me to tell him my testimony. So truly, there was after one of our dates, I think it might have been the one where we went to see the baby in the hospital. I can't remember. It was like day 2. It was pretty close into the beginning, but I just wanted to give him like a chance to go away if he didn't want to keep going further with after what I have to tell him. And so I prayed and I was just like, I was like, Lord, guide me in this. And I told him my story, and his response to me was, and I was nervous, And
by your story, you mean some harder things.
Harder things that I had been a part of in college, basically. Some decisions that I made that really had huge repercussions, just in my life in general. Even my job and everything. Like, I just had chosen poorly, but then I had been restored. And now I'm working back in ministry, and I'm doing the things that the Lord has clearly prepared beforehand that I would walk in. But he needs to know, because maybe this isn't it. And so I tell him, and his response to me was, that's a beautiful story, and I'd like to ask you out again. And I was like, I was not expecting that. And I'm so glad that's what I got. But it just made me go, wow, this guy really understands forgiveness, and he really understands like the grace of God. And I'm like, and now I like him even more. So now if it doesn't work, it's even worse. Like if we break up later, this is going to suck. But worked out.
Well, I think it's important to, anytime you're getting to know somebody, it's that back and forth of I share a little bit of information, a little bit of vulnerability, and I see what you do with it. And relationships start that way. You start by talking about the weather, and then you're just seeing how that person treats you. But friendships happen when you move from that pseudo community, hey, go sports teams, it's hot today, to chaos of let me say something vulnerable about what I really think about something. And then you respond, And if you can make it through that, you can get to deeper community. That's just how relational dynamics work. Mm-hmm. And what we were realizing is, for me, we would get places in where we would just talk about stuff and we'd disagree. Yeah. She'd make some decision with her band. I was like, I think that was a terrible idea. And for me, that would be, that would be like how I would say it. I think I might be more tactful now. Oh, gosh. But I got to see in her, like, she wouldn't just wilt or fall over. She would engage me because I wasn't being mean. Mm-hmm. I just was sort of a blunt person. But we could discuss ideas, and I liked that. And she had a capacity to learn. I go, this is a teachable person. And she had a willingness to challenge me. Mm-hmm. And I go, this is an interesting dynamic. And then for you, seeing, okay, what if I do tell him about some more vulnerable places? Does he show the capacity to forgive? Mm-hmm. And you're watching how you treat each other. And so when you're starting to form this relationship, for me, what helped with evaluation is, can we conflict well? Mm-hmm. What happens when we approach ideas that are difficult? Hey, we know how to resolve them. We don't hurt each other. We don't blow up. We don't freeze each other out. There's a maturity. Mm-hmm. And there's this commitment of we want to work through problems towards unity. And that's what helped me within myself of seeing, like, it's not like, hey, this relationship's kind of becoming a hassle. I'm like, I'm discovering in myself a desire to overcome boundaries. Physical boundaries when I move towns. Hey, I want to keep driving for hours to come see you. Some relational boundaries, we're miscommunicating. Let's solve it so we can get back to unity. Hey, you're telling me some hard things about your past. Let's grieve that. Let's be sad. But let's not be completely derailed by that. Let's move beyond that. And I saw in myself that desire for commitment. Mm-hmm. And you go, well, that's good because a marriage is a commitment. So that's part of it. To answer your question about evaluating, I found myself going, I want to be in this relationship. And when there's a boundary, it's not the brick wall we slam into. It's something to move around and keep going. Yeah.
Well, and I just fell in love too with the fact that he was somebody who had character. And, Ben has got a great capacity for understanding the word, and he has such wisdom on how to lead things and do things. Sometimes he might be one of the smartest people in the room. But for him to be able to, but for you to be able to say when you're wrong on something, made me go, okay. So the guy who I think almost most of the time gets the right answer on how to do something or why to do something, when he's like, hey, I did that wrongly and I'm sorry. And he could actually say, I actually don't know how to do this and I do want to learn how to do, it just was this beautiful, like, wow, you have such character to not be so self-righteous and not like stand on, but I'm going to be right until I'm right. That's the hardest thing. A lot of people, like, in life, period, just can't get past their own self-righteousness. Mm-hmm. And they don't like to say when they're wrong. And they can't say that they're sorry. And I saw him do that multiple times. And it was just such a magnet for me. So.
Yeah, that humility was what solidified your respect.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's interesting in Song of Solomon, at one point he pictures, as their relationship is deepening, he pictures her as a dove high up in the cleft of a rock. And he doesn't climb up and grab that dove. He calls for her to come forth. And you go, it's extraordinarily gentle imagery because he's saying, I want deeper intimacy with you, but I know I know I'm dealing with something fragile when I'm dealing with your heart and I think that was part of it for us is how does this person handle you? Mm-hmm. And you're talking about, like, I had studied the Bible a lot more. Mm-hmm. So I was further along intellectually. Did I lord it over you? And was I rude? But then for me, it was like, but she has more emotional maturity than me. And there's some shame attached to me that I don't know how to do some of this, but she's not shaming me. And we just had to realize like, oh, we're honest with each other, but gentle with each other too. That's the kind of person you want to journey with in life. That's full of grace and truth. Mm-hmm. That there's something beautiful about that. I trust you, because marriage ultimately is not just about love. Mm-hmm. It's about trust. Do I trust you with my heart, with my money, with my life? And what you're trying to figure out in dating, a big part of it is, can I trust you with all of me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So single, dating, engaged. Yeah. When was kind of that gap from, okay, we're dating, we're figuring out, we're learning to trust each other, sharing what's vulnerable. what was kind of the process for the two of you of like, hey, we've been doing this for a minute.
Yeah.
And we think that there's something here.
Yeah.
What did that process look like? What was maybe the main things going on in your lives or in your individual minds of like, I think I'm ready for this?
Yeah. I had moved to a different town. We were both like, while you're single, let's pursue what God's put in our hands. And so she was leading her band. I knew I needed to go to seminary to kind of invest in the ministry gifts I'd seen God give me. So suddenly we had distance and time, which are great evaluation tools to see like, as time goes by, do you go, I remember that girl. She seemed nice. Does distance make you go like, it's a hassle to close this gap. Yeah. I think time and distance can be good tools. You don't always get that, but it's good when you do. Some people are distressed by it. You go, that's wonderful. We were in different towns. And then we just realized we keep wanting to find time to be together. We keep wanting to close the distance, and just watching that desire was confirming we want this. That doesn't mean the other humans fills every vacancy in your life or solves every problem you'll ever have, but we just realized I'd rather be with you than not be with you.
Yeah.
If I had to choose my life of like a life without you and a life with you, I choose the with you one. And I think for me, when that sounds simplistic, but I needed the time and distance to figure that out, and then go, you know what? The with her option is better than the not with her option. All right. And then after that, for me, it was starting to scribble down dates of going like, how fast can I get a ring? How fast can I talk to her parents? Like, how fast can I make this happen? So for me, I'm a big fan of the, take counsel to all your fears, consider all the angles, and then once you make a decision, go hard and don't look back. And so once I crossed that boundary of, no, I think God's in this, I want her, then it was, how fast can we? And I think engagement should be really short.
Really short.
That's my view.
I think too, just for me personally, as the evaluating, we did take a summer where we just wrote letters to each other. We didn't like instant gratification text or email or go drive down the road and see each other. We literally just took a break to kind of see, can we do this? Can we be apart and do the things that God had put in our hands? Like, I had to do the band and he needed to go do seminary. And so trying to figure that out, I also needed to go through the journey of, if this doesn't end in marriage, if this doesn't become engagement, am I going to be okay? And God was like, yeah. You're going to be okay. One of the things that I loved about our dating relationship to that point was how much I had fallen in love with the scriptures even more than I already had because of how much he loved them. And he opened up a whole new world to me in the realm of just reading in general. And so I had dived like like jumped fully in to like the Chronicles of Narnia, which I hadn't read as a kid. And so I'm just like, I'm growing in my faith. I'm growing in so many ways that my first love was growing, So I fell more in love with Jesus in the season that we were dating, to the point where, yes, I wanted to be, I was just like, man, I hope this goes further, but I'm gonna be okay because I have this amazing first love relationship I'm never gonna lose. And I'm totally complete here. He does not complete me. Jesus does. So I had to get there. So he's like, I think I want her instead of just me, and I had to be like, I think it's okay if it's just me and Jesus. And it'd be great if it was him. And then the Lord clearly put those together.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that is another marker of, again, you look at the book of Song of Solomon, all the imagery is springtime. And every chapter starts with the beloved and the lover apart, finding their way to each other. So at different stages, it's them apart with some obstacle, finding their way to each other, and the dominant imagery is life. And I think for us, it's that mutual commitment. We want to be near each other. We want to overcome obstacles. And the combination of our two lives is springtime. It's life. We're watching growth in your faith, growth as a human being. I was learning to be nicer. Every woman that worked for me would always cry in their eye, and I'm like, "Why are you crying? Like, I don't understand why everyone's crying."
That's what he does.
And
why are you crying?
And I just was like, I just need to learn to. I wasn't mean. No. I just didn't know how to be gentle.
Yeah.
So
but
we were both growing. Is the point.
We were, and it was cool because we were gleaning from each other. Like I would say, I was a ready, go, set person. And Ben's more of a ready, set, go person. And so now we're ready, set, go people because we've gleaned from each other.
Yeah, it's accurate.
So.
Yeah. So you know where you stand. You're like, I'm ready. Going to buy a ring. You actually told this story recently in a sermon. So if people don't know this, people can go back and listen to this because it is a tale.
Quite the story.
It is quite a story.
But you pop the question. You say yes. Y'all get engaged. But as you just told us, you're living in different cities. Like, talk us through what were some of the logistics of it's not just let's plan a wedding. It's okay, we've got two lives that are kind of planted in different orbits right now, but we want to get married. What does that look like?
We got engaged on the night of the Return of the King, just so you know.
Lord of the Rings. It was a big part of the tension at the back end of our dating was I did not want to say, hey, God's put this career in your hands, kill it for my career. And I didn't want to kill what I thought God had put in my hands to follow her band. So we were both like, do our lives align? Are we going the same direction? And that was a lot of the tension that we had to resolve until we finally found a way. Oh, there's a way for us to run together that isn't like one of us has to be crushed and then resent the other. Like that, we're not going to do that. We're going to figure out, are we meant to run together? Once we figured that out, you're like, all right, then it's on. And then we wanted to make the engagement as short as we could, which I think is good. Once you know, you go, then let's hurry up and get this thing
Ours was
together.
like 4 months.
Yeah, which and that's quick, but we also like worked at churches, and so we had the venue immediately. And I remember showing up at her church,
the reception immediately,
and you know she led worship. She was the darling of her church. I remember the one Sunday I went, the pastor was up there and was like, "Donna's getting married, everybody!" And it was like they all cheered, and he goes, "Mark your calendars, folks, May 5th." And she was at like a mega church, and I was like, "Oh my God!" So we were like, "Okay, well, it's an afternoon ready because there's no dinner." And, you know, like, so that made a bunch of decisions for us. But again, it was really sweet. And again, it doesn't always work out this way. And I've been to beautiful weddings that are real, you know, small, intimate deals. We realized, well, we're going to have to blow this thing open. And we didn't have any money.
No, we had no money.
So, I mean, we had friends from her church.
Great. It was a beautiful way to see the community
goods
come together
for the reception.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
There
saying?
was a girl here last Sunday, Jessica Green. She said, I served cake at your wedding.
Yeah.
And she was one of my girls that I discipled.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
yeah, they all got put to
everybody
work.
got like
we
all hands
walked
on
in
deck.
and there was nothing on the stage. We were like, whoops, we probably should add some decorations. And one of my buddies who's kind of more artistic in that way, I didn't even know, drove to his church, stole a bunch of stuff, drove back over, decorated the stage. We forgot the communion stuff. And another buddy of mine just like slipped and found some. And so it was all like, we were trying to do so much. And there was just a lot to deal with. And I mean, like, and again, a lot of humanity to deal with. Like our wedding registry topped out multiple times. So people were buying us everything. I was just picking random stuff.
Register again. We had to choose
I was picking like
to go back and
satellite
register.
GPSs, you know, before that was a thing. And
We
people
registered
bought them.
REI.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Still
they
using
do that.
backpacks and such. Oh yeah. But again, it was nice to have a community surround us.
It's huge.
And that was really sweet. But yeah, we drove off in my pickup truck.
Gosh, that was a great day.
And then off we went. Yeah.
Off into the sunset.
Off into the sunset. 20 years ago.
Yeah, 21 almost.
Wow.
I think it's fascinating hearing you talk about your wedding because for so many people in our kind of modern context, you spend so much time and so much energy trying to get the wedding perfectly right.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's not bad. We've talked about it. Like, it's good to plan a fun party for your friends and to do these symbols that have all this meaning to it. But so much of remembering your wedding is like the community and the fact that we made this covenant to each other. It wasn't like we had to have this thing perfectly right. Because I think Becca and I, even like looking back on ours, there's so many things I forgot. I'm like, I don't even know. People are like, so what'd you do this for your wedding? I'm like, I don't know. And that was 8 years ago. Not 20. And you're like, I've already forgotten all these decisions we like cried over of like, we have to decide what kind of meat's on the tacos. And you're like, I don't know what meat was on the tacos. So it's like when you go about it the right way, the little details, they're important, but they don't matter.
Yeah.
You can just move into your marriage in a way that's helpful, healthy, centered on Christ. That's what's going to matter at the end of it.
And it's beautiful to have the people around you that love the Lord and love you and walked through this celebrating you. Yeah. And it was beautiful for us to have friends and family that have never had a community like that experience that.
Yeah.
To be around the orbit of what God had knit together with us.
Yeah.
Because it had been in the context of this loving community. Yeah. I mean, I had so many family members that wouldn't darken the door of a church, maybe had some bad kind of experiences, et cetera. We're going like, but I want this. This is neat. And you go, this is what salvation is pictured as. This is what eternity is pictured as. The wedding feast of the Lamb. It's pictured like not the wedding ceremony, but the after party. Like it's pictured that way. It's meant to be surrounded by the people you love, rejoicing. And so weddings can be a little picture of that when they're done right. And I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. So you get married. The first few years, I feel like I hear 50-50. Some people, they're like, oh, that first year, it's the worst. And then other people are like, I loved my first year.
You and Becca talk about y'all's first year of marriage of just like, not a care in the world.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
Year two, different podcast for a different time. But year fun was so. I'm just curious with you guys, like those early years of figuring out what does it look like to live with another person, to make decisions with another person. Because up until that point, you don't. Right. You know, you shouldn't. We've talked about this in different podcasts and places of like, you are not married. You do not need to make these decisions together. But then you get married and suddenly you're like, we are one.
Yeah.
We have to make a lot of decisions as one. Was that hard for you guys? Was it fun? A little bit of both?
Our first year of marriage actually was the biggest decision that we had to make. Was we had gotten 3 asks to go to 3 different places, and we had to literally pray year one.
It was horrible.
It was terrible. But it really formed us because like it was one of those like, we don't want to make the wrong decision. We know we're going to one of these. But which one is it? And it ended up being Breakaway. But like that was 9 months
year
of
one. That's terrible.
Praying hardcore.
The 9 months before that were just blissful.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
We hired hard to manage easy. A lot of tumult in our dating of evaluating. So this once we got married is blessed. I do think not everyone, again, it doesn't work this way for everybody, but we both moved to a town neither of us had lived in very long. Yeah. And there was something cool about that, about like figuring out where we're going to go to church, figure out where we're going to live. We were having to discover everything, you know, and together, which was kind of neat. We were broke. But it was neat to see like...
I mean, literally, like Luke's Pantry was the thing at the school.
Yeah.
And didn't you walk in and you were like, oh, who's all this bread for?
Yeah.
And they were like, it's for the students. Yeah. It's not for... We were so broke.
Yeah, basically like canned meats.
I like literally, and I worked at Starbucks and you had to wear, like back in the day, you had to have like a uniform for Starbucks. And so I would like go to like thrift stores in Dallas, which is great because you get like Prada and stuff like that. But it was like thrift store shopping and pantry shopping.
Well, but we learned there like a good date for us was a walk. You know, split a burrito. And
free birds.
But I think a good practice we had is we didn't even have a TV, I don't think. I think we had a little one we'd pull out of the closet sometimes.
Yeah.
But we spent a lot of time talking. And a lot of it was just enjoying being around each other. And then some of it was, you don't actually know the dance of living together very well. And you start to have these assumptions of like, well, my mom cooked, so you cook. Well, my dad fixed this or you fix that. And you start to realize, you're like, oh, I never really realized. I just sort of assumed what marriage, we all have a blueprint of what we think it is, even if we've never expressed it. But you come in with these 2 different blueprints and you go, oh, okay, well, let's actually form the one that's us. What does our marriage look like? What are our values? How do we, and those only come through dialogue and communication. And I think in that early year, it was a lot of that of just, how do we dance together? And some of it was really easy. Some of it was funny stuff like, oh, as an introvert, like, I love to visit, but sometimes I need it to stop. Like I just need a minute. But that's not about you. That's about how we're wired. And you know, like it's obvious to us now, but we just had to figure out how to dance. Like, and then I had to figure out like, I loved studying. I was in seminary and I could study for days and days and hours. And I had to realize like, hey man, win at life, put your books away and invest in your marriage. And it was sort of embarrassing to say like, oh, that's really hard for me to go. There was this little like dopamine hit of like, I got an A, I finished the book. And you're like, yeah, but invest in your marriage. And then when I chose the better thing, it was like, this feels deeply right and really good. But I was having to learn how to be a husband, how to care for a woman. And it was just, there's no shortcut to it. You just have to spend a lot of time talking. And it's the couples that don't do that and don't process that. They end up years into the marriage at counseling having to process where things went off the rails year one because they didn't talk through all their problems and assumptions. And so it's good to give yourself a lot of time to communicate.
I think year 1, too, was a time for me to just move from assuming your motives and moving to, I don't get this guy. I can't assume his motives. Yeah. I need to just ask him, what is he thinking? And just let him speak for himself. But for the longest time, I just was like, oh, well, he's thinking this. And that's just like so not fair. And so I had to learn that because I had never really had to before with anybody else. Just kind of like, oh, this is what they're thinking, or this is how it goes. And so the Lord really had to humble me in that first year, like, hey, just ask him. Ask him what he's thinking. Because I'm pretty sure, what was it? We were going down the road and I was like, what are you thinking? And I thought it was going to be really deep. And I think you said, blue car or something like that. I was like, what? Like we were in the middle of like a kind of a tense moment too. And he's like, blue car? I was like, okay, I don't get him at all because I'm thinking about all of the things.
Blue car turbine. Yeah, but we figured it out. Peter says it in 1 Peter to live with your wife in an understanding way, which was revolutionary at the time. I mean, you think of the time the New Testament was written, is like your wife was a tool to pass on your DNA. There wasn't this high value for women in a Roman context in the same way. And Peter's telling these men like, no. She is a co-heir in the grace of life. And so live with her in an understanding way, meaning like, hey, do the work to understand she's wired differently than you and don't disrespect that. Understand it. So be curious. And for me, I realized I don't have to know how all women work. I don't need to read a bunch of books about women, but I do need to know this one. I need to know how she works. And I need to not dismiss the areas in her life that may be a struggle that aren't for me and be like, oh, that's nothing. Let me be a student of you and understand the way you work. And then I can better learn how to dance with you. And I think early in marriage, that's important to do, to give yourself a lot of time to figure out that dance.
Yeah. Well, and just knowing, and y'all today, like it sounds like the pressures and the responsibilities have only stacked on since then. Like you've grown in different ministry opportunities. You do now have kids. Like there's a lot of other things you're balancing on top of that. So it really does sound like that foundation early of learning to see each other, hear each other, gave you what you needed to be able to stack those other things on.
That's a good way to think about it, because as the weight gets on, if there's a crack in the foundation, it becomes a fissure and the house comes tumbling down. I do think early on we got really good at understanding each other. And so then you can navigate any problem together. We used to talk about that. You were not the problem. We're not across the table going, will you always, you never. It was, no, like we're side by side and we're facing a problem together. And the problem may even be like Ben's feelings are hurt. But if we could go like, why? What happened that made me, why did I react that way? Well, I think I don't like being talked to that way. And just sort of figuring out how to dance. But once we figured that out, you're right. Then you can stack on bigger problems, more complex problems, more responsibilities, but it's not going to crack us because we already built a solid foundation.
Yeah.
We laughed a lot too. We just really like having fun. Yeah. So we would try to fix whatever the problem was when it needed to be fixed. But then we just had fun and we just enjoyed each other and we just didn't take everything so seriously all the time. We enjoyed breathing and like just taking in.
Yeah. Well, you hear people say sometimes, and it always sounds kind of cheesy, like you got to still date your spouse. But I do think that's what you're talking about. Dating, the point is to have fun. You're thinking more intentionally. We're going to have this conversation. We're going to have this fun experience. And if you cut all of that out just because you got married and you see each other every day, like it makes sense. Your happiness in the relationship isn't going to be what it was before. Right.
But even then, I think if by date, it is good to sit at meals and just look across the table at each other and talk. You need that. But if that's all it is, then you go, at some point, you're like, I don't know. But I think it's wild when you look in the New Testament we're only shown 2 marriages where you see the Ananias and Sapphira, who terrible job, end up being killed
Bad idea.
by God. And then you have Priscilla and Aquila. And you see the enormous impact they have on the New Testament. Like we have several books in the New Testament because of the faithfulness of this couple. And I think we're shown them to see a marriage is not just a picture of Christ's love for the church, like Ephesians 5. A marriage is on a mission together. And so for Donna and I, there was a lot of those meals across the table looking into each other's eyes, but it was also a lot of, hey, we're on mission together. This is the church we're going to be involved in. This is the places we're going to serve. Our gifts are different, so how we engage will be different. But the coffee shop you work at is our mission field. This is the way we thought. So we were always like, we're not just looking into each other's eyes, we're grabbing hands and running together into this cause God's given us together. And that makes life really fun.
Yeah. Well, we are all grateful for it as people who get to be in your community and cheer on your marriage.
Guys,
so
thank y'all.
Thanks for telling us more of your story. And we're excited. We'll be back in the next episode to talk through some questions we received about marriage.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Come on.
Let's do it.
Thanks, guys.